Friday, November 15, this is Brecky with Vossy and Brandy on Sydney's home of sport, SEN 1170. We have an esteemed guest to introduce, and a man of this standing. Andrew, I need to come to you as leader of this program. I'll bestow the honour of introducing this man to you, my friend.
Well, I'm going to call him one of the finest cricket commentators ever. I love listening to Simon Katich, straight shooter. I think a biting sense of humour when needed, very dry. And he's part of the SEN team, and we're proud of that fact. Simon Katich, welcome to Breakfast with Vossy and Matty Russell this morning.
Good morning, guys.
Simon, let me start with a question that we threw out to our listener right from the top of the program today, and want your opinion both as ex-player and commentator. Is 7 overs a side enough to call it a game? Yeah, people are saying, well, it's entertainment, so they're in the entertainment industry, so that should be enough. I'm personally thinking 7 overs isn't enough, like 42 balls is not enough. What's your thoughts?
Well, it's funny you say that because I happened to coach in the 100-ball competition in England during the winter, and we played a game that was 30 balls each due to the weather. So,
wow.
Look, it's getting shorter and shorter. So, yeah, it's a tough one because obviously, the paying public are there. They want to see, some sort of action. What's enough, I guess, the way the game's going, there was probably plenty of entertainment in that 42 balls last night, given the way Glenn Maxwell played. But, yeah, it's a tricky one because it is a very, very fickle game to play. It only takes one player to come off and you win the game. So I get both sides of the argument. It's a pretty tough one to sort of debate on because, yeah, I mean, generally it's always been, I think, around about, I'm trying to think actually what it is in the shorter formats, the minimum balls amount. But obviously it can go, based on time now. So 42 balls doesn't seem like enough. But, yeah, it obviously was enough last night.
I think it was mentioned last night, Simon, that a 5-over-a-side game was still allowable if time was there for them last night. In the end, they got 7 overs each. We were asked on the text line earlier why Glenn Maxwell doesn't open more in white ball cricket. As an opener yourself, should that be happening more?
Well, I think he did move up the order because normally he's sort of in that 4 or 5 spot in T20, and it sort of fluctuates depending on matchups and how the game's playing out and all of that. But I did notice he did bat. I think he batted at 3 last night. So, teams will be flexible with that. But it's a good question because, with the way the power play is, unless you've got 2 specialist openers that their role is to take the power play on, and I think that's probably why he didn't open last night. Matt Short and Jake Fraser-McGurk are those sorts of players that will just go from ball one. So they obviously felt they'll keep with them in those roles and then, let Maxi loose as soon as the wicket fell. So as it played out, he did big damage and won Australia that game. So I can see why they probably did it the way they did. But, that's a good point. Someone like that, get him out there if, there's only that amount of balls and see what damage they can do.
The great man, Simon Katich, special guest here on Breakfast with Vossy and Matty Russell this morning. Now, Ricky Ponting sort of stirred the pot. He got the Indian coach a bit upset by he was just making just straightforward commentary around the form of some of the older Indian batsmen. And to me, it was just, well, he's a former player and he's allowed to comment. And the Indian coach took offence, Gambier, and wanted to put Ricky in his box. Do you want to go the same areas as Ricky, Simon, and unleash the hounds with the Indian cricket team? Do you want to make an overview of their batting lineup and where they're at?
Oh, look, both teams will be feeling like there'll be some pressure going into this series based on form and also, the quality of the attacks and the conditions they're going to come up against. We've seen it in the last number of years here in Australia. The curators are leaving a decent amount of grass on most of these wickets, and we're seeing, a lot of the tests only go into probably the 4th day. Some of them, probably Adelaide, there's a chance it probably only goes 3 days, given the pink ball. So I think, both top orders have got their work cut out for them, and that's going to be something that, both engine rooms are going to have some serious questions asked because of the quality of the pace attacks and then also the quality of the spinners if we do get to later in the series and it's dry and spins in certain venues. So, I didn't read too much into what Punter said. He was just making a valid statement based on Kohli's recent form. No one's saying that, you write Kohli off at your peril because his record here in Australia is outstanding, averages over 50, and he's done it on a number of tours and been a former captain of this team. So there's no doubt that he's going to be fired up after recent form. And sometimes, that's the time you have to be most worried of these sorts of players when their back's against the wall, because he's a proud man and he's a true competitor, and he will want to make sure that this is potentially his last tour of Australia. He'll want to go out in the high and win for the third time on the bounce. Let's not forget, India won the last 2 series here and done it without him and Bumrah and these sorts of guys. So they've got plenty of quality, but I expect Australia to have a good summer and win the series.
Simon, how do you look back on your, I think it's 4 test series you played against India, and the relations between India and the Australians and the Australian public, especially while touring down under?
Yeah, look, we've always had a very good rivalry. I think, the one that stands out for us was winning in India in 2004. That was probably the final frontier for a number of the boys in that team, given that they lost a close series in India in 2001. And I know Adam Gilchrist spoke about it recently being probably his finest moment, which is saying something given his stellar career. So having been on that trip, there's no doubt, it was a different style of cricket then, because the Indian team were full of their legends, the Tendulkars and Dravids and Ganggulis and all these guys, Sehwags. But then it's changed, and it's certainly changed, with Kohli and these guys, and even Gambhir. I mean, those two have been probably 2 of the most combative Indian players that we came up against, and there's a reason they achieved what they did, both as individuals and as teams they played in, because they're true competitors, and it was a new India under Virat Kohli. They've completely transformed the way they went about it, and not in a bad way, not only with the aggression on the field, but also the discipline and professionalism off the field. And he led that as skipper, and that's why we're seeing a battery of Indian quicks now, because his attention to detail with his physical preparation has flowed onto the rest of that group. And whilst he's not captain now, there's no doubt he's had a huge impact on Indian cricket. And the same with Gambhir coming in now. His back's against the wall as coach. He wouldn't have enjoyed losing 3-0 to India. I know him well, having worked with him in the IPL, and he will be wanting to turn the Indian team around, and they're a dangerous opponent at the moment.
All right, Simon, so many questions to ask, so little time. Now, one of the other issues from the week, of course, was the last match of the one-day internationals against Pakistan, and Australia rest all the players, and Pat Cummins ends up at the Coldplay concert and all of that. Hypothetically speaking, Simon, if it was up to the players, how much cricket would you play for your country? And I'm saying we totally leave it to the players. Like, would you... That was a series decider. That's one that I have trouble getting past. That we're sold that this is a series, and that's a series decider, and then you get to the last game and then you rest all these players. So if it was just up to the players, how much cricket would you play? For Australia, that is.
Yeah, it's a tough question, because it's changed so much now with all these different comps around the world, and that's where it's so different for the boys now compared to when we were playing, because realistically, there was no IPL, and there was only really, you play international cricket, and then if there was a gap in the calendar during the winter, guys would go and play county cricket. So it's so different now for these players, and they have to probably pick and choose at times, what they're going to prioritise based on what's around money-wise with the IPL and with all these different franchise leagues. And that's where Cricket Australia and the boards have got tough questions to sort of answer around how much cricket they allow these players to play, because the players have to get no objection certificate from the board to be able to go and play in these leagues. And that's where they map out their schedules throughout the 12 months. And that's probably where, the public probably go, well, hang on, you're allowing them to go and play for 8 weeks in the IPL. But then they can't play in a couple of ODIs at the start of our summer, when it's really important for our fans and spectators to see, our best players on the park. So I don't envy those decision makers with that. But at some point, playing for Australia is the priority, particularly when they're getting well rewarded with their CA contracts.
Well, lots of support for you, Simon, and your role in the SEN commentary team from Matt and the Reptiles. Some very positive texts there. You are part of the team Australia v India starting midday next Friday here on SEN. And, of course, tomorrow, T20 Australia v Pakistan, 6:30 start, SEN 11:70. Are they dolphins in the background, or is that construction workers?
They're jackhammers.
Oh, they're jackhammers. You sure? Well, hello, he's at SeaWorld. He's at SeaWorld chasing a couple of dolphin fillets. Good on you, Simon. Thank you for coming on the program. We do appreciate your time.
My pleasure, guys.
Andrew,
There
I
we go,
know
Dave.
that the Western Australian pitch is notoriously hard and fast, but I didn't think they need a jackhammer to get it ready for the first test. I can't wait for that coming up right here
I
on
seriously
SEN.
thought dolphins there for a moment. My first
did
impression
sound
was
like
there
that.
dolphins in the background.
It did
You
sound
got
like
those
that.
dolphins there handy, Charlie? Where's the dolphins? Where's the dolphins? Yeah, there we go. There we go.
We are here thanks to Bryden's Lawyers. If you are unable to work due to injury or illness, contact Bryden's Lawyers 1800 848 848. Back to make some listeners prize winners right after this.